Today on Faces of Florence, Sam Gibson. Sam is a young man, but an old soul. As campus pastor for Newspring, Florence, he has a true passion for the city of Florence and the people who live here.
Hey, welcome. We're so glad you found us. Radio Free is a 24-hour Christian mixed radio station broadcasting right here out of Florence, South Carolina. So when you're driving around town, remember to tune it in to 92.5. And if you're outside of the Florence area, you can listen 24 hours a day at radiofree.cc.
Sam Gibson, welcome to Radio Free, and welcome to the Faces of Florence series. Now, I've known you for a long time, and you've been a friend of mine for a long time, and I'm excited to have you in here. I know a lot about you, but I'm excited for our viewers to get to know some more about you. The main idea of this show, I say it all the time, is we're called to love our neighbors. It's hard to love your neighbor unless you know who they are.
Right.
And you're known by a lot of people, but Florence is getting bigger every day. I'm sure there's some people out there who do not know you. And so we just want to get to know you, and I'd love to start with a little bit of your story.
Yeah.
You good with that? Can we talk
Absolutely.
a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit how you got here? You're looking at your shirt there.
Yes,
You're
sir.
not a Florence guy from birth. So
Yes.
maybe can we talk a little bit about where you were born and kind of how you ended up in Florence?
Absolutely. So very honored to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely.
And I think the world of you and Radio Free, what you guys do. And my story, I wear this more as a conversational piece. So if this, Carolina fans or Clemson fans, I'm sorry, but it just starts conversations often. I don't care that much about college football, just a little bit. But I was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. My dad is from Florence. My mom is from Pamplico. But I grew up in Auburn, Alabama. We moved there when I was about 2 years old. And Florence was always a place we came for Christmas and Thanksgiving.
Right.
We
Grandparents
had,
were here?
Grandparents
Yeah.
were here, both sets. And so Florence was just a place that, we always kind of came to, stayed in Florence during the day, went and stayed with my grandparents in Pamplico at night, and just kind of did that, have cousins here, all this kind of things. And it was like a second kind of home, you just heading that way. I thought as a young man, or as a young kid really, I thought Florence was awesome because I had a Toys R Us. And so you just come down David McLeod Boulevard, and I was like, man, they got Toys R Us. This place is awesome. So it's like, as a kid, that's all you care about.
That's
it's like,
interesting.
You might as well have been in New York City.
Right,
It's
right.
like Auburn's a bigger town, but yet the fact that there was
no Toys R Us
no
in
Toys R
Auburn?
Us, man. It was a desert place. And so, in that whole process, I never thought I'd live in Florence ever. I mean, it was not in my cards at all. Grew up with a great family. If you want to get into this deep dive this soon.
Let's do it, man.
Man, incredible family. Kind of grew up in the church, but quickly, towards middle school, high school years, start realizing there's just, like everyone else sees, I think there's more out here. I feel like I'm just being told what to believe, don't know what I believe. Really got into the drug and party scene, super deep into that space. I mean, by high school, I'm like way deep. It's like you hear stories of like, this fell into the wrong crowd. Like, I was the wrong crowd. The wrong crowd would have
yourself.
my name attached
Right.
to it. Yeah, it's like, this is a guy you don't want to be around. But man, obviously that leads you to a place of emptiness, and
Before you get into that, add in to your story. I think it's interesting that you're a golfer.
Yes.
And that part was part of the energy behind you being able to do some of the things, get into some of the things. Is that right? Do I got that right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I vividly remember I was a really good golfer when I was 13 years old. I was scratch and was really good. I mean, just one of those things that played in a lot of tournaments, won a lot of tournaments. Our high school golf team, we won 4 consecutive state championships in golf. But let's just say this: my freshman year, I was a lot better than my senior year because I found some drugs and different party things that I really got into more, and just had all kind of mentors.
Swing was off at that point.
But I mean, I vividly remember, honestly, Kevin, you hear all these things about like the DARE program. I'm not throwing shade anywhere, but you smoke pot once, then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're homeless and on heroin. And I remember getting on the golf course and being around some very 13 years old, and I'm playing with people of prominence because I'm good at golf.
Yeah.
And these guys are partying super hard, and I'm very successful people were smoking pot. And I remember thinking, I'll never forget, Kevin, the moment that I saw this of like, wait, this guy's doing drugs, and yet I don't even want to say the profession he was in, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, and I remember thinking, if they lied to me about this, what else did they lie to me about? And that kind of set me on this path where it's just like, well, if they lied about this, I'm going to figure out what else they're lying to me about. And, anybody that tells you the drugs aren't fun, there's a reason. Like, people are addicted to drugs for a reason.
Right.
It's not the worst thing you've ever done. Like, it will lead you to a bad place.
Sure.
But yeah, that's actually, I gone to rehab my senior year. I gone to a treatment center. Again, family incredible who would, always, I did tremendously terrible things to them, but they always kind of had a place. I told them throughout my testimony for me that nothing they ever did made me make the decisions that I made to get there.
That's good, man.
But everything that they did made a space for me to be able to come home when it was time.
Wow.
And so when I knew I need some help. So I went to a treatment center my senior year, and then I got invited to walk on at a local college because they're like, hey, we know you had some trouble your senior year. We also know you're really good. So if you figure that stuff out. So I ended up going to play at a smaller school, but herniated my disc in my back. All this, this kind of journey. The only reason I was there at that point was to play golf. And so then it was like, well, I guess I'm here to party. And that ended up, running that route real fast and getting to the end of that. And to the point I packed up one day in college. It's a long story here, but I just knew, like, if I don't get help in the next 3 days, I'm going to die. Like, I'm on D.
Wow.
For most people who are Christians, being a slave to sin is a theology for them. If you've experienced addiction, being a slave to sin is a reality of what I know what it feels like to know something is killing me and yet bow down and serve it every day.
Wow.
And so, man, that was like a big wake-up moment for me. And actually kind of how I ended up, the long story of ended up coming to Florence was basically like, man, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I just need to let the dust settle in my life and figure it out. And, man, that's just sent me on this crazy trajectory with the Lord of, like started going to churches because I'd, seen the old party scene. Thought I'd find a decent church girl and, ended up finding Jesus, which is a much better option.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm probably everything pastors don't want in their town, and now I'm a pastor, so I get it. So, but the Lord used that,
So you came here after rehab and stayed with some family here. What was the
Yeah, man. I was the pinnacle of an 18-year-old's existence was living with his 81-year-old grandmother, right?
Wow.
So you talk about humility, right? It's like you could pretend like you're killing the game all you want to. You're 18, 19 years old living with your 81-year-old grandmother.
Yeah.
Reality check, right? It's like, and but honestly, man, she was a strong woman of faith, and just one of those, like, just a gem. She would tell you very direct. Would tell you if you're doing something stupid, and honestly, I really cherished the fact that I got that time with her. Like, it was awesome. Sure. Like, me and her, we were super close, and she passed away a few years later. I ended up buying her house and staying in that place, and so it's just interesting, man. It's crazy how the Lord uses all that stuff.
So, all right, so what you've described so far and where you are now, worlds apart.
Yes.
So, and we all of us who are believers know that Jesus uses stories and interesting and people who all over the map to build his kingdom. Take us to the next step to where you are heading towards where you are now.
Yeah, man. I would just tell you the next step was for me was, even if you're searching for the right things for the wrong reasons, God will use that sometimes. And so, like, I'm checking out churches, and I just knew I'd run, sin is pleasurable for a season. So I'd run, like, I knew, like, drugs, alcohol, no chance. This is leads you to a bad place, right? And so, man, I was checking out churches in town and just going to different places. I kind of grew up in church, and so I had this idea of it. And that's how I kind of stumbled in. I mean, I think I've attended every church in Florence, and I love every church. Like, I've got nothing, like, I had committed to a different church, but I found out about Newspring was coming into town, and just like, I'll check that out, and just kind of fell in love with it.
Yeah.
And for me, Kevin, it was just like kind of the consistency of going. You start incorporating some things into your life that I don't even think I knew what was happening at the time. I just remember getting there, and I was like, my idea of following Jesus was don't drink, don't smoke, don't have fun.
Right. No cussing.
Yep, like, you just clean up your, just pretend like you're good on the outside, and
there you go,
live a good life. And I mean, honestly, I had these thoughts in high school, stuff like, well, when I'm 40, I'll settle down and start following Jesus, right? Like, just so crazy to me.
I think a lot of people think that way, though, Sam. I think there's nothing odd about that.
Yeah,
until you meet the real Jesus,
right? Until you meet Jesus, right? And so, man, it happened for me where there's a lot led up to this, right? Where it's like I'm just sitting in some services, and it's like, realizing, all right, either my life needs to start changing to get in line with what's happening here. Not like in the legalistic way, but like, I don't care about anything they're talking about.
Right.
I'm just kind of here to check off a little box and, look good and feel better about myself and go do whatever I want to during the week. And, man, I vividly remember, Clayton King, he's one of our teaching pastors, very, just a great evangelist. And he's preaching one day, and it's clear as day that I'm like, I could have communicated the gospel to you out of my lips. I could have explained it, but it is like the first time I understood it for me. And it's clear as day, like hearing from the Lord, man, you've known about me your whole life. You've never known who I am. And realizing it was just in that moment, man, this is not about trying harder or doing more. It's about surrendering. And it's surrendering to the finished work of Jesus. And then just committing, like, the fact that I thought Jesus was boring, like, it's so funny. Like you said, like, I'm on the absolute ends of this, like, from way over here to like, I think it's crazy people don't follow him.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, and just stepping in that space. And so, man, I think it is getting around other people that are, even if it's like for the wrong reasons or whatever, it's just God really is really good at what he does. He's really good at drawing people to himself. He's really good at, sometimes I think we felt we have to like market God.
Yeah.
And I don't think he needs it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've been reading a lot about spiritual formation stuff here lately, and a lot of it is exactly that. You're in a space around people and energy that is pointing towards Jesus, and it affects you.
Absolutely.
And so that's fascinating. So you kind of stumbled into Newspring. Did you hear about Newspring prior to them coming?
Yeah. So basically, I was living in Florence, and again, like I never planned on being here long term, and just over I was planning to go like Hilton Head to go to professional golf school or something, but all the plans just kind of fell apart last minute. Ended up getting a job at a local hospital here, started working, and then I was like, well, here at work, might as well start going to school, start taking night classes at Tech. Real interesting journey in that space for me. But one of my night class teachers is, if I'm in school, I'm going to start talking to you. Like I'm a personable person. I like people, and so I would always ask questions about like, what are you doing? I remember I thought she looked younger than me, and I was like, super young. And I was talking to her, and basically she says one day, like, hey, there's a new church coming to town. It was really funny because she's always like super comfortable in conversation, but I could tell she was nervous. She's like, there's a new church coming to town. You should check it out. And I was like, sure, I'll go. And so it was one of my night class teachers who still comes to the church. I'm good friends with Travis and Lindsay. And I always tell her, like, man, you have no idea that invitation changed my life. Like I can start crying thinking about it. Where like, what happens if she doesn't say that? I don't know. I'm sure the Lord would accomplish what he wants to accomplish, right? I'm confident of that. But it's just so cool when you can see God partnering with people to accomplish some of his work. And so, I started going to Newspring and just kind of fell in love with it. And at the time, Newspring was only every other week. They were just starting. And so I was going to Newspring one week and then a different church in town the other week. And just kind of enjoy it. And, man, over the course of time, man, my life just started radically changing for the better, for sure.
And that's about the time when we intersected a little bit. And you were... To say you were on fire, I think is an understatement. I have some of my early Christian memories are going a little too far with things. Like I heard somebody say one time, when you first become a believer, you should be locked away for about a year, until you kind of get settled down.
Yep.
But you seem to be so genuine to me. I remember encountering you there at Newspring several times, and you just had it in your eyes, And obviously, the leadership there saw that, and so they drew you into being a pretty high-powered volunteer, which led to youth pastor, right?
Yep.
Tell me about that. How'd that look, and how'd that feel to you?
Yeah, I mean, it really was just, in my journey, I would love to tell you it was like this immediate thing, but man, I'm very cynical by nature. Like I don't believe anything the first time I hear it. I've been believing in fake news before it's popular. It's like just unless I can see it, touch it, feel it, I don't know about this. And so it really was. I had this encounter with Jesus, and things start changing. And so, meet my beautiful wife at the time. We weren't married yet, but
at church.
We're actually working at the local hospital.
Right. Yeah.
We were attending church together, and so that was just such a significant journey for us. Where I wasn't even a believer when we first met, and then this whole road afterwards. But man, really, Kevin, I was give my life to Jesus. I'm just like trying to take the right steps, but like also I think serving at the churches for people who are retired or have nothing better to do.
Right.
Like I work full time. I go to school full time.
Too busy for that.
Literally, they called to ask if I wanted to volunteer. I was like, no, I'm busy. Like they're like stunned by it. Like, what? Don't you have other people who can do this? But just over that time, again, you just sit in that same space. Like I said, formation community. You just sit in this community that's pointing in a specific direction. Like either you hop in or you kind of get something's got to start shifting. And that can go one way or the other, which is okay. But it really was. I was sitting in a service one day, and they were preaching out of Matthew 16:18. And I remember vividly, like, it wasn't I disagreed with anything they were saying. It just massively bothered me that I didn't know what the verses before or after it said. And so I just started reading the Bible. And I find this thing where it's like you can read through the Bible in 90 days. I'm actually getting ready to start that on Friday, October the 1st, is getting ready to start again. But we just read the Bible cover to cover in 90 days. And it was such a, like, I had this idea growing up in church of what the Bible is and what God is and all those kind of things. And then I met with the reality of just what's in the Bible. Like, there are words in there that I didn't think you could say in church.
Right.
And they're coming out of the Lord's mouth.
Right,
You know, it's like,
right.
and man, I just radically encountered the Lord through the Word. I can't express how much reading the Word of God. It's not the habit of doing it. It's encountering the person of the Word, right? It's, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us is what John 1 says. And so, man, there were some specific moments. Jeremiah chapter 2 is still one of my favorite passages. That I remember the devotion of your youth, your love as a young bride, how you follow me in the wilderness. And it's the Lord speaking this over the nation of Israel. And the first time I'm hearing that going, wait, this is not angry language. Mm-hmm. This is heartbroken language.
Right.
He's broken for his people. Like, he wants them back. And man, all these things started shifting in my life. And so then, that whole process for me of, like you say, maybe the fiery miles, I don't know, but I think it really was just encountering the Lord through the Word consistently. And then 90 times 4 is 360. And so I was like, I'll just keep doing it. So I just, like, really my first 3 years of believer, I read through the Bible every 90 days, just over and over and over again. And it was such a formative thing for me because I had so much junk of what I thought it was. And I still to this day do, right? Like the goal is not certainty. And we love certainty because it's comfortable, we can control it. But if you read through the New Testament, it's really about mystery. Yep. It's a profound mystery, and there's a beauty in that mystery if you can actually go after that. And so it was an interesting journey for me of, like, I never thought about working for a church. And, I had my own life aspirations that Jesus kind of wrecked, but in the best way. Yeah. And I just still to this day, Kevin, want to live my life like encountering Jesus in everything that I do and believe that he wants to integrate my life into everything. And so we live in a very Western society that wants to separate your work from your home, from your marriage, from your kids. And it's like, I can't even keep up with all the quadrants you're supposed to have these days. But I just want to, like, even some misteaching I think that sometimes out there where, like, God should be number one on your list. It's like, I don't think he wants to be number one. I think he wants to be the list. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. And you are a young man, obviously. Probably look younger than you actually are, but I
think I look way older. I feel like
but for real, when all this was going down, you were early 20s.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I came on staff when I was 22 as a youth pastor.
Okay.
I've been clean for several years at this point. It really was just like had basically, like you said, giving my life to the Lord. I'm in on this thing. Let's ride. Yeah. And then they asked me to step into the campus pastor role when I was 23. I was the youngest we ever hired at the time. I still think it's a mistake to this day. Like, it's like, man,
But for real, I was going to ask you about that. Walk me through that, because that had to be both a blessing and an honoring, but also a burden of just like, wow, like that's a lot to put on a young man's shoulders, What was some of your struggles at that point?
Yeah, I mean, well, honestly, I told them no for a long time. They asked me, and I remember just saying no. Like I said, I was too young. And even at that point in my early journey with Jesus, I'd seen enough of the people that show up really hot and then they leave really cold, right? Like, it's like, I'm going to go, overseas to China, and then the next thing you know, like, they don't want to talk to Jesus anymore. It's like, and I'm thinking, what's wrong, right? There's something's off. And I remember telling them, like, I want to burn hotter when I'm 80 than I do right now. I want to make this. I want to finish well. Like, I'm not here to just. I don't want a platform or anything like that. Like, I want to finish well, because I think one day I'm gonna have a platform with the Lord, like standing before Him and giving an account for it.
Right.
And there really was this process for me, Kevin, where they just said, "Hey, we understand that, but and so just respect how Newspring leadership at the time was handling this. Would just keep praying about it. And just if God's got it for you, you really can't mess it up. But also we respect that, and so just keep taking the next step and see what happens." And I remember vividly, man, there was a time for about first 6 months where I was saying no, and then I remember this shift began to happen for me, where I would drive through the city and just start crying. Like, and I'm not. I wish I was the crier. Like, I've got no shame. Like, I respect people that can cry. Like, it's awesome. Like, I want more of that in my life. Just evidence of a soft heart. I'm like driving through the city and just weeping. Like, I'm just seeing like generations of things broken down, and like, man, we got to do something. Like, this is not okay. And so over time that became a yes, but it was beyond overwhelming. I mean, when you're sitting around doing marriage counseling with people that have been married longer than you've been alive, that's a reality check. If that doesn't humble you, pride is an issue, right?
Right.
And honestly, insecurity was my issue probably more than anything else. And man, I've just had the Lord put so many people on my path along the way just to, I remember a pastor one time told me, he said, "Do you think Jesus would be a great marriage counselor?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How long was Jesus married?" I said, I see what you're doing there. And they're like, well, same Holy Spirit he had, you have, And so I certainly think, I think they saw something in me that I didn't see it myself at the time. But really, I think the beautiful thing is all that weight and stuff, like it certainly led me to, like, I feel like I burn hotter for Jesus now than I did back then. And that's because I could not do this on my own. Like I didn't have a strong pedigree to back. I had zero credentialing to show up there outside of Jesus. And to this day, still do.
Right.
I've got nothing except I know I enjoy the Lord and I read his word and I'm about him. And that's what I want my life to be about. And there's something like just so simple and dangerous and stupid about that all at the same time, right? Like it's crazy, man, but it's been such a wild ride.
Dangerous and stupid in the kingdom way, which is that thing that's so foreign to a lot of people, a lot of us when we're not in that zone. Well, let's circle back around to you driving through the city, being overcome with emotion for this city. You obviously have some roots here, but the part of my drive for starting this series is that there's something happening in Florence, it feels like, and there's a lot of really special people kind of in the mix doing things, and you are one of those people. And so what do you think it was about that time that was grabbing your heart so hard?
Man, Kevin, it's beyond a supernatural thing. I also think it is this reality that everyone wants to see change, but they think it's going to happen like that.
Yeah.
And when you start looking through, like, we're talking about how we have gotten where we are today, and I fully agree. God is doing something. There's something happening here. It's awesome. Yeah. But it's not going to shift overnight. And it almost takes this awareness that there is a lot of people are trying to pretend like things aren't broken. I think 2020, 2021, like we have to admit now they're broken.
Yep.
But it's also not going to change overnight. And so there's things like that anchor me very deeply. Like I go by National Cemetery and the Confederate Stockades all the time. Because when we're having a conversation about race in 2020, 2021, I have the opportunity to go out there to meet with one of my friends as an African-American pastor, and him and I are praying there together. And it's helpful to remember that there are more Union soldiers who died in captivity here in the state of South Carolina than anywhere else during the Civil War. So there are people who are fighting for the unification of the country. I'm not being political here. Fighting for the unification of the country, and yet they gave their life here. Like their blood is in the ground. Like that's significant. I believe there's a way to go, and this is what me and my friend were talking about. It's like, do we have a long way to go when it comes to justice in our nation? Yes. At the same time, you need the perspective that we've come a long way.
That's good.
And so, Kevin, there was definitely, I think it was a very supernatural thing. And then, a later part of that story, like after I say yes to all this is 2012, 2016, there's a lot of things shaking at Newspring in a different way, right? And this like kind of sent me on this interesting journey of like, man, Lord, why are we here? What's going on here? And that's just a whole different, can of worms. But, we find out through a long series of events. But my grandfather's grandfather was a traveling evangelist pre-Civil War. And we're talking like 1830s. And he goes to a community and says, man, this place needs a life-giving church. And the place he plants a church is Florence, South Carolina. And I have no idea about this. The crazier thing, Kevin, is my wife and I have lived in the neighborhood for 2 years at this point. The cemetery where he's buried is right outside my neighborhood. I pass it every day. And so I've got 5 generations removed. I'm his grandson's grandson. The church that he planted still exists. It's less than a half mile from where I gave my life to Christ. And so, Kevin, when I say I feel such a deep, God is a generational God doing a generational work. And I think all the time now of like, man, if he had known what he was whispering to God asking for would potentially come to fruition in his grandson's grandson. And so, man, I feel it deep. Like you cut me open, I believe, Florence. It is, and I felt that way before I knew that, right? Like it wasn't, that was like an icing on the cake where there's definitely just been this supernatural burden for it. And now it almost makes sense because I think I'm on like, I don't think I'm starting anything. I think I'm on the receiving end of generational inheritance. Like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, like I just have to be the one that like is getting blessed, I think. And so, man, I think that's helped me so much to be anchored into my life and my faithfulness and obedience to Jesus today. I'm very okay if that's just to prepare the way for 200 years from now. And I think we lose that in our mindset, right? It's like my purpose, my plans. It's like, I don't really care. I want to know what his purposes and plans are. I'm trying to get about that life. So, I mean, I love this community, love what God is doing here, and it's awesome. It's such an honor to be a part of.
That's fascinating, man. And, may your tribe increase. There's a lot of people who move here who are not from here, who have no roots here, and so there's something in the water, and then there are the people who are Florence born and bred who are trying to get out, you know? But I think that there is this thing where there's this shift happening, and people like you taking the fore are amazing. And ministries like the one you are leading as well. And so let's talk about that. Maybe let's kind of shift towards the future. I love your perspective on, like anti-celebrity. Like you're not trying to do a thing so everybody can say, hey, we did a thing. You're just saying, I'm just going to move forward step by step. But let's talk a little bit about maybe what are some of the things that you guys are doing, because I know Newspring has a heart for Florence, and the way the ministry has kind of shaped up now, it's very localized now. Oh, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about what you guys are doing out there and maybe what you see coming down the road a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's one of the things I love about Florence the longer you're here is there's great people here. And one of the things I want to do all the time is just like, you hear about this incredible ministry or this incredible nonprofit, and it's just like, do you know that this person exists?
Right.
And, it's like, man, all these great things happen in pockets. Can we figure out how to point them in a similar direction? I think a huge thing, for us just, and really in my life is just prayer. I mean, I think there is this, you get spiritual formation, it really boils down to prayer.
Yep.
So we host a good friend of mine, the CY Prayer Gathering. We're part of Helping Florence Flourish. That's a once a month thing. But probably almost 3 years ago now, some people we were talking, it's like, this is about the same, 40 to 60 that just show up at these things. Like, what if we started meeting every week to pray? And so every Wednesday at noon, we have a prayer gathering, and we just kind of house that. We don't really host it. It's my good friend Jolly heads that up. But, that was just this past Wednesday at noon. And, we got believers from all different congregations, all different backgrounds. There's a lot with the pastoral community that's happening here. Like, man, I'm probably going to leave some names out here, but, Lonnie Curl from Lance Chapel, Adam Richardson from Sandhurst. I could go down Chris Hanley from First Pres, Matt Walton from Trinity. There's this beautiful thing happening where, like, man, these are my brothers in arms and brothers and sisters in arms that we're just getting after, like, I love Jesus. You love Jesus. We might have a few differing theological opinions, but it's not worth fighting about. Does Jesus rule and reign in your life? Yes. Okay, let's ride. And so, man, that's a huge thing that I think we have been spiritually fractured for many years, for generations, and that didn't happen overnight, right? That's a long, road where I think it just takes a faithful few that are willing to say, well, let's be different. Why does it have to be that way?
I was going to say, why? Why do you think that's happening now? Because that's got hardened. How are people's hearts softening? I mean, obviously, it's a supernatural work, obviously.
Yep.
But do you see something? I feel like your generation, younger people are able to not come from that place of hardness right out of the gate, and that's helpful.
Yeah.
But what do you think is what do you think is going on?
Is like I said, obviously from the Lord in a big way. I think, man, there's just something these days where my generation, or even beyond, we want the real thing.
That's real. That's different for a lot of.
I want a reality with God.
Yep.
And that's on offer. That's what the testimony of Scripture says. That's what Jesus came and actually died for us when we get to the Holy Spirit, right? And it's like, and we exchange that somewhere down the road for certainty and comfort. Yep. That I want to get in my preferential worship style, with my preferential teaching, with my preferential type of people. And that's just, and there's, tons of history there that, like you said, that right, wrong, and different. But I really just think, and I also think church leaders at this moment are waking up and going, if you look around and think what we're doing is working, like from a cultural change standpoint, it's like, man, I don't know what to do besides pray that Jesus will open your eyes, right? Like, we are in a very desperate hour, and I think we're not in a, like, for the world, I think for the church.
Yeah.
I think this is an hour where it's like, there's in other parts of the world, we just live in such a westernized, and I love where we live. It's such a great gift, but like, you can have your own church, you can have your own thing. There's a saying for pastors that are in the Middle East that you're either going to hang together, or you're going to hang separate, but either way, you're going to hang. like, because they're forced to, because they're laying down their lives for this, right? Like, I think there was, somewhere down the road where it just got our eyes off Jesus. And I think everything that's happening on the earth right now, to as little as limited capacity I can offer, is God calling his people back to get our eyes up on him. Jesus says in John 16:33, I tell you these things that in me you have peace. If I look over my life over the last 18 months, anywhere I found peace apart from Jesus Christ, shaken. Anywhere where I found, because we think peace, I got peace. No, you actually have comfort.
Very different.
Very different.
But you don't know until.
Very different. And so and there's definitely, the Lord, just in the midst of everything happening in the world, I just am very convinced and know and believe the testimony of Scripture far too deeply to who I am. It's not just words for me. The Lord's doing something. All of this is unto something. Like, this is not, Psalm 2 says, why do the nations rage and people plot in vain? The Lord sits in the heavens and laughs. And it's not that he's like laughing at whatever. It's just kind of like, oh, this is like what we're panicking about.
Right.
Nothing. He's got this. He's ordering something.
Well, as you move forward and help to create this atmosphere here, one of the things you mentioned was this prayer gathering. Can you give us some more information on that? And if someone's watching and they're like, I would love to see about that, maybe be a part of that.
Yeah.
How does that work, and how can we get some more information about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's every Wednesday at noon.
Just show up out of Newspring.
Yeah, show up at Newspring. You walk in the front, you walk in the doors, and we've got people that are sitting there. And like I said, it's one of my favorite things I get to be a part of, because it'll go anywhere from 12 to 60 people. But even of the 12 to 60, there's typically about 16 to 18 different congregations represented. Wow. Several senior leaders of other churches come consistently every week. And this is really where this is really forged some relational stuff. And so Jolly heads it up, and you don't have to be there every week, but it's just been going for years at this point. And it's been such an incredible gift to me just to grow in my love and affinity for the body of Christ. And you got Presbyterians in there, you got Charismatics in there, you got Baptists in there, and it's all these different kind of veins, but it's all the same. We desire to honor and exalt the name of Jesus and bless his city. And show up Wednesday, 12 noon. You got people that roll in about 12:15, and because it's on their lunch break, and you kind of have to roll out early, and it's you can't be there every week. That's fine, but it's also check out the citywide prayer gathering that we host monthly. That's hosted at different churches. It's just kind of landed here, mainly because Jolly works not too far down the road, so it works better for him. So.
Well, if someone wants to show up, no credentials needed. You don't need to be a pastor of a church or whatever. You can just show up and pray. Yeah. And what does it look like for say the new believer who's like, I'm not comfortable getting up in front of a crowd and praying.
Yeah.
What does it look like?
I just say come and experience it. I would also say, this is the aim. If someone was really wanting to learn how to pray, you can come from any church. We host a prayer gathering every Sunday night at 7, every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And so Sunday night at 7, Wednesday at 7. This is how I would basically try to train people how to pray. It's basically the equivalent of most Christians, and this is my story. I love watching documentaries about working out. I love watching CrossFit documentaries, or you watch, Schwarzenegger pumping iron. It's and I can tell you all kind of information about working out. I tell you all kind of information about nutrition. What I don't do is actually show up to the gym, right? That information is not translating to activity.
Right.
And man, Christians are the exact same way. I was the exact same way in my pastoral journey. I had all this I could give you a theology of prayer without a prayer life. And I just remember kind of getting to the end of myself saying, I'm going to be about this. And so the best way I can describe it is we offer a spiritual gym. You want to show up and just learn how to pray in a very comfortable environment, very on-ramped. You're not going to be pressured to do anything you don't want to, because it can be an intimidating thing. That's okay. And I think it's just, so I would offer that, that we've got people that come from other churches. Some other pastors hop in on that every so often, because it's really just we kind of teach it's a very ancient practice of praying God's word. And it's nothing, nothing new under the sun. It's nothing whatever. It's just, we're going to open up a passage of scripture, ask the Lord teach us how to pray, and it's awesome. So I would offer that.
7?
Sunday nights at 7, Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m.
Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And then the Wednesday afternoon, the Wednesday lunchtime thing is just actually getting together and praying. And so say if somebody showed up there, are there people that get up on stage to pray for that situation? Or
man, it's nowhere near as flashy as literally Jolly usually gives us a short, and Jolly's one of my best friends in town. He's from Nigeria. He's awesome, works over at Otis Elevator. But Jolly will just give a quick short exhortation out of something, and really it's just, there's no one on stage, there's nobody taking pictures, there's no lights. It is people just kind of huddled around, and you don't feel a pressure to pray out loud. There's not but we do kind of encourage, most prayer guides you go to are come watch the pros pray, which is like not in the Bible anywhere. Right. There's no such thing as I'm pretty sure a 4-year-old making whispers to God is probably more powerful than any of my theologically informed prayers.
That's true.
And so man, I'll just come check it out. Like the CDY prayer guide is a great opportunity as well. Those are monthly events that host, because that's kind of how Wednesday Noon started. Was just, what if we just start meeting more often?
More, yeah.
And then just be consistent in it. And
here we are.
It's done some incredible stuff. So that's just a thing. There's lots of other things, trying to partner with other churches, partner in the community with other nonprofits, and just bless the community. Like, there's a lot of people who want this place to be a better place. Let's work together and make it happen.
Well, Sam, I appreciate you spending some time with me today, man. I could talk with you all day long, and there's lots more. Maybe we'll have you back at some point and get the next phase of your journey here in Florence. But I really appreciate what you're doing, and I appreciate you being a face of Florence in a big way. Like, you're taking that to the streets, for real, as you shared with us. So we appreciate that so much. And I will put, along with this, some links to some of the things you mentioned. We'll get together and I'll get some, email addresses and whatnot. But I just appreciate you, man. I appreciate you, and I'm looking forward. You make me happy when I think about the future of Florence. Man. So I appreciate it.
It's a blessing to be here, and I think it's all of us. I really do believe to the core. It says the city is built by the blessing of the upright, torn down by the mouth of the wicked. It's just, man, for me in my mouth, I'm going to bless this city. I'm going to bless these people. I'm going to bless this community. There's a lot of people that want to badmouth what's happening on the earth, what's happening in Florence, and not on my mouth. Like, I want to help create a preferred future for generations beyond us. So, man, appreciate what you do, and it's just a high honor. I hold you dear in my heart. You're definitely one of the faces of Florence, and it's such an honor.
Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you.